Here.
Thank you, Emily. Marta Burnett. We'll come back. Megan Funis, I heard you out there.
I'm here.
Joellen Tapper.
Here.
Thank you, Joellen. Todd, I heard you out there. Michelle Caponegro.
Here.
Thank you. Sandra Vanderzee.
Present.
Thank you. Mark Clemens.
Here.
Thank you, Mark. Lisa Reeder.
Here.
Thank you, Lisa. Marcel Waldman.
He's just joining now.
Okay, Jen Sleen.
Here.
Drew Terry.
Here.
Jeff McGowan, I heard you. Tara Coyle.
I'm here, yes.
In the house.
Thank you. Courtney Eldridge.
I'm here.
Thank you, Courtney. Andrew Goose.
I'm here.
Thank you, Andrew. Kelly Butterworth. Michael Tarlow.
Here.
Thanks, Michael. Jen Kessler.
Here.
Kathy Keegan.
Here.
Thank you, Kathy. Michelle Picard.
Here.
Aaron McKee.
Here.
Tony Hunter.
Here.
Thank you, Tony. Tricia Marshall. Krista Wood.
Here.
Dana Rundle.
Here.
Thank you, Dana. Tia Kleinkopf.
Here.
Thank you, Tia. Christy Otley.
Here.
Thank you, Christy. Tim Baines.
Here.
Thank you, Tim. Stacy Cho.
Here.
Thank you, Stacy. Jennifer Ferris.
Here.
Thank you, Rosalind Osawagu.
Here.
Thank you, Rosalind. Amy Myrie.
Here.
Thank you, Pam Winskill.
Here.
Thank you, Pam. Jane Harris.
Here.
Thank you, Jill Ravenscraft.
Here.
Thank you, Leanne Tupou.
Here.
Thank you, Leanne. Carrie Reckling.
Here.
Thank you. And it's going to go to the top. There's just a few more here. Marta Burnett. Marcel Waldman.
Here.
Thank you, Marcel. And Kelly Butterworth. Kelly. And Tricia Marshall.
Here.
Awesome. Thank you, Tricia. So one last time, we are just missing, I believe, Kelly Butterworth and Marta Burnett. If either one of you are there, please holler.
Somebody, Dr. Almy, said they were going to be excused or not present. I forget whose rep that was.
Yeah, I think that person's here, though. So I think we can get going. We have 38 of our 40 folks. Thank you for coming back for our final Boundary Review Committee. So excited to see everybody. We are in the month of February. Happy February to all. Before we get going here, actually, as we get going, let's go over the agenda real quick. In just a second, I'm going to review the agenda right now. Then we're going to try and approve our minutes from last meeting. And then I'm going to hand the ball over to Jake and the technical team, who are going to talk about some technical corrections and the status of that. And then some transitions tools and what's next. What happens next after this? Obviously, there's still a decision that has to be made from our Superintendent Thiele. He'll talk about that at the end. And he'd also, we will hand it over to Superintendent Thiele once we get done with our work to close this committee out. So let's do this for right now. I'm going to attempt to share my screen. I don't know how well I will do, but we will see. Mr. Cooper, can you give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen?
I can now, Dr. Almy, yes.
Perfect. Let's take just about 2.5, 3 minutes to review the unofficial minutes from January 21st, which was our last meeting. That's on your screen. You can also access that on the district website. Simply click on Boundary Review Committee, scroll down to the unofficial minutes from January 21st, or follow along here on the screen that I'm sharing with you. So I'll give you a while to check that out.
Would you mind maximizing your window a bit? We might be able to see a touch more of the same.
That better?
Yes.
All right. Okay. Are there any motions on the minutes? Raise your hand or just unmute yourself if you still wish to make a motion on the minutes. Or any discussion on the minutes?
Nobody jump out there with a motion on the minutes.
I'll move that we accept the minutes as presented.
I second.
Moved and seconded. Okay, Dr. Almy, call for the question.
Discussion or questions on the minutes that we just reviewed that are on the website that are currently unofficial? Okay, gonna give it about 10 more seconds just in case anyone is deep in thought. Okay, Mr. Cooper, is it time to take a vote on the minutes?
It is. We'll call for the question. Are we going to put the poll up? Stephen, can we have our poll?
We can.
So all in favor, if you are one of the 40 voting members, something deep inside me wants to always mention that before we vote. If you are one of the 40 voting members, if you are in favor of approving the minutes, please vote yes. If you are not in favor, vote no. Thank you, Stephen. I see the voting buttons appear before me, but I'm not going to vote because I'm not a voting member. So I'm just going to leave that alone on my screen.
Okay. Motion carries unanimously. The minutes are approved as presented.
Thank you. I misspoke a few minutes ago, folks. Our illustrious leader, our superintendent, Superintendent Thiele, would like to address folks now, not at the end of the meeting. Superintendent, are you there in the Zoomosphere?
I am, Dr. Almy.
The floor is yours.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, I texted him. I said, why are you making me stay to the end of the meeting? I can always go and watch on YouTube. So my fear is you all might get to talking and be here late tonight or something. But I kind of doubt that. But I do appreciate a few minutes. First of all, it is great to actually see you all virtually. I still just long for the day when we can all be in a room together and I can be in the same physical space. But for now, this is appropriate. So I really just wanted a few minutes to thank you all just profusely from the bottom of my heart. You have done some really outstanding work, not only for our school district, but for our entire community. School boundaries. I hope that you've learned a lot and you've had an opportunity to enjoy some of the the conversation and understanding about the complexities of school district boundaries and how it all ties together. But I wanted you all to hear directly from me how impressed I have been. And I've watched every minute of these meetings. After the first meeting, I moved over to the YouTube site and experienced it that way. Must see TV, I will say. You will conclude the first ever virtual boundary review committee for the Issaquah School District. Probably one of the only virtual boundary review committees that will ever be done in a public school system.
I hope so.
Yeah, me too, Jake. And you've done so masterfully. You improved upon the district springboard. And the team does a great job starting with those springboards. I really have to commend them on that, but I just knew you could find ways to make it better, and you did. As I was observing these meetings, I was so impressed with the level of dialogue, and I didn't get to go into the breakout rooms, but I listened very carefully on the report outs. But I was so impressed by the level of dialogue, the professionalism, and the open-mindedness and creativity that you all brought to your conversations as well. And I was just really impressed by that. So grateful that you all were willing to give so much of your time to this problem. And I think the solution, so I wanted you all to know that since your last meeting, I began to, and I know you had this final meeting, but your recommendation that you approved overwhelmingly at the last meeting, I've really been taking a look at that, looking at all the pieces, talking further with Dr. Almy and CFO Cooper, had a conversation with our Director of Transportation, Colleen Eduardo, because I need to check these things. I need to make sure that, my simple question to her was, this really works, right? Because as you have all learned, transportation and bus routes is a big deal and a big part of this this problem solving, if you will. And not surprisingly, because she's been here the whole time and working with you all, she affirmed that yes, this plan that you all approved is a very solid plan. And so I did want to share just a little bit, and I apologize for my shaky video here, share a little bit about my timeline. So I'm going to continue the process of reviewing your recommendation to me. I will be sharing my final decision with the school board and the public at next Thursday's board meeting on 2/11. It is an agenda item. I'll just note that's the same day that our K-1 students will be returning to in-person hybrid learning. Yay! So it's going to be a big day for us. But I will send a letter out. Jake, Josh, if you'll remind me to have a letter ready to go to the committee members before the actual start of the board meeting. But I will tell you, at least in my initial look at the work that you've done, it's going to be very, very difficult for me to improve anything on that. And that doesn't surprise me. So thank you again, a huge thank you, not just from me, but from the entire community, the school board. I'm just so grateful to all of you. We have such an amazing community. I feel so fortunate to get to be here, and observing you all work was really very impressive. So thank you. Thanks, Josh and Jake, for letting me step in on your meeting here tonight. I know you've got some final work to do to wrap this all up, and I'm hearing from some in the community as well, and I'll be considering all of that as I move forward. But by next Thursday, I will be ready to communicate my decision, and I'll let you all know up front. So thank you. I won't take any more of your time, so I won't keep you any later here tonight.
Well, keep us on the background, Superintendent. You must see TV. I'm sure that you love to just have that streaming, hear my voice in your own home at night. But
I do. Now I have to confess, I'm about to take this tie and jacket off. So
fair enough.
Have a great evening, everybody, and thank you again.
Thank you, Superintendent Thiele. Moving right along, CFO Cooper. I know that we have some technical corrections that you wanted to share, status, and then move on to transition tools and what's next. So I'm going to hand the ball over to you.
You bet. On the technical corrections, I probably need Colleen and Mr. Baines. I think what was left last meeting, if I recall, was the Rainbow Lake Ranch piece. Colleen, is that correct?
Yes, Bridget had talked to Tim about the Rainbow Lake Ranch piece, and Tim was going to say something about it.
I'm going to bring that map up. I can bring that map up if need be. Okay. Come on. Are we good on the screen share, Dr. J? Okay. So that's the piece we're talking about. Go ahead and Tim and Colleen, if you don't mind filling in the group about the
Yeah.
Good.
Well, so, this had come up, and I guess less of a technical correction is more of just some feedback that was received from a couple of community members prior to, I think, our end of December meeting. But I think really the Rainbow Lake Ranch is, opposite Issaquah Pine Lake Road from where E16 is going to be. And so some members from that community had reached out about the chance to attend E16. But, in reviewing that with Bridget too, and I think she raised some great feedback that really that's a long crossing for those kids. And there was a great effort made to not having kids have to cross Issaquah Pine Lake Road to attend there. And because of the proximity to the school, there wouldn't be busing transportation. So that was some feedback that I did share with a couple of members of that community who had reached out to me just to kind of go over those pieces with them, and gave them the opportunity to share feedback with our boundary review committee as well. But just wanted to kind of express the perspective of the technical team on that one, that really kind of comes down to a safety consideration too. So that would be a crosswalk that would be kind of, again, outside of that bus zone, but not necessarily right within the school bounds there. And so wouldn't be necessarily the school staff would be able to cover that each year. So that was something that was just a concern that Bridget raised that we talked about, and I shared with that community too.
All right, and realistically, that chunk would stay now with Sunny Hills, correct?
Yes, within the current springboard, that would stay within Sunny Hills.
That's our current
Colleen, is that right?
Yeah,
Yes, that is correct. It would stay with Sunny Hills.
that's our current elementary school. So they're not
Yes.
moving. Okay.
Along with the other area, the other neighborhoods and streets that are on that east side of Issaquah Pine Lake Road.
Okay.
And I can't
So
speak for all the families and, different communities and what those folks would like, but, I think that there are some valid points and concerns definitely from that transportation perspective of why it makes sense to maintain that, bus access to Sunny Hills there too. So see both sides of that.
So I think what the committee's hearing from us is that we were looking at a technical correction on Rainbow Lake Ranch, but we believe we can just keep it status quo. Correct, Colleen?
That's
That
correct.
is the springboard, right?
We're going to keep it status quo.
Correct. And I think that's the only technical correction, or do we have one for Sunset as well?
That wasn't really a technical correction. It was just when we put out the first map, the boundary wasn't quite right.
So it was just a map.
So we just adjusted.
Draw the boundary.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then E17, when we put out the first map, we had to adjust the boundary. So now it is correct.
Okay. So any questions from the committee overall? I mean, right now I would recommend giving the safety issue and the fact that we've touched base with parents and they're actually not moving schools, that we would just keep those parties at Sunny Hills Elementary and not move them over to E16. There's no movement. There's a safety issue if we do move. So obviously, and it's just a technical correction. So unless there is a huge amount of heartburn, I think I would like to dispense with that issue. We don't need to vote because it's already in the springboard, unless there's an appetite for further discussion.
And if you would like to ask a question, make a comment on that, just raise your hand virtually and I will make sure that we give you the floor as I'm monitoring that as we are in real time here.
Okay, Dr. Holman, is there any questions about that issue at all?
I'm not seeing one pop up in the chat or a virtual hand. I'm not seeing up. So
Okay.
we'll have some other time here down the line in this meeting still if something comes up that somebody wants to ask. But right now I don't see anything.
So I wanted to show the committee, right, for the most part, when you're doing these boundaries, we show you the district map to start with, and then we give you pieces throughout. But my favorite part is at the end when you can actually see the work you've done. I know that sounds kind of silly, but I am a finance person. So I'll take you back to the website. I assume I'm still sharing. Sometimes it has problems when you transition back and forth between documents. Are all the maps that you need. You will need to communicate to your communities and your stakeholder groups. If need be, there's all school district maps and all the changes. So the funny thing is when I was reflecting back and I've started to look at next year's enrollment, and we really only touched 2 elementary schools, which is pretty amazing. Given all the, we're opening 2 new elementary schools. So I guess this year we only touched 2 elementary schools. Creekside will be effective when 17 opens. But that's pretty amazing on the elementary side of our 15 elementary schools, and we added 16. We really only changed the boundaries of Sunny Hills and Clark to feed E16. So pretty amazing work by you all there. And then we did touch every middle school though. Those feeders changed slightly, or in some cases quite a bit to feed middle school 6. So yeah, overall, because I had to digest some of the data as well, I think the committee is in fine shape with where you ended up. To be clear, the superintendent, he just presents the boundaries to the board. So I wanted to remind you all of that. There's not a vote by the board of directors in this case. This is something that they have delegated through their policy governance to the superintendent and his administrative staff. And so he will be presenting his recommendation next week. So now that is the technical part of the agenda. Are there any questions on any of the technical aspects before I transition over to my educators, which are a lot more touchy-feely than me? This is why I talked about last meeting. The final meeting is the most important because they are going to blow you away with some of the examples and strategies that we employ. Since we have done lots of boundary changes in this district over many years, we have strategies to welcome new families in, PTSAs, and also have parents start their new social circles, right? We know that it also does affect who parents see and hang out with as part of that, because I get it, I'm a parent. When you move schools, you change social circles. So to that end, I was going to have I think Assistant Superintendent Bungard kind of do it from an elementary perspective, since she has a few schools to talk about, and then Executive Director Morris was going to kind of give you some examples from his middle school principals, because again, we touched all those middle schools. So if you could go ahead, Jody, and elementary principals, feel free to.
Jake, I had my hand raised. My little Zoom hand. It's Kelly Butterworth.
Oh, hi, Kelly. Sorry, I didn't see your little Zoom hand.
No, that's okay. I just had a question. I know there was just kind of so many attachments sent out recently, and I wasn't able to really go through them all, but I was curious if there's in one of those attachments, apologies if this is redundant, you've done it, if there's an update on those spreadsheets that have sort of like where the percentage of where all the schools are at. And just where I'm coming from with that was a concern, like in my community, of someone going from PCMS to now IMS, and they're feeling like now they're going from a not crowded school to an overcrowded school. And so I just think it would be helpful for the community to also maybe see just like where things netted out in the end in terms of like capacity percentages.
Yep, I will add those on. I have the spreadsheet. We have not, since we adopted all the movements from basically, I think the first 2 meetings, I just want to make sure it's the right spreadsheet. I believe it's the one from 1-4. So I will add that to the list so that people can be alleviated of those concerns. And I can make sure that my plan on next Thursday, Dr. Anami and I will help superintendent kind of facilitate the community presentation. So I'll make sure that that is highlighted as part of that, because we're going to use the website to present to the board and the broader community. And I'll pull up a PDF copy of that spreadsheet and go through the capacities and the utilization. So yeah, if people are worried about going from an underutilized to a more crowded building, I'm trying to figure out where that would be.
Yeah, I didn't feel like it was representative of the IMS numbers I had seen, even with the all of Sunset moving, but I honestly didn't feel like I had the data to really, make her feel any better in terms of knowing, with certainty what that looked like. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, no problem.
Jake?
You bet.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, is the question moving from IMS to which school?
Middle school 6.
Middle school. So I just, off the top of my head, Jake, I mean, IMS currently is right around 1,000 kids. And so, it's going to be moving down substantially. I mean, most of the middle schools are going to be similarly sized as far as size goes next year. So I'm not 100% sure on the question. Middle school 6 will be somewhat smaller, but it's also relative to the capacity of that school.
There was a theory, so this is from the Sunset community. So there was a theory that a current PCMS parent had about feeling like they were moving from a less crowded middle school to IMS being an overcrowded middle school. And now this is just based on sort of, anecdotal data or conversations. And so I do think it would be helpful for presentation to the community in total to have whatever those updated percentages are. Because if we're getting questions or things, I think it would just be good to sort of level set with people what that looks like.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I would think that going from PC this year to IMS next year, they would be going to a middle school that has much more space.
So, and I'll make sure this is the right spreadsheet because I've had so many iterations. But if you recall, I'll ground you in some of the things that I'm sharing. Remember, we have piece counts at middle school 6 of about 716 and 820. The current 10-1 enrollment is that blue stripe. So IMS goes basically from 975 to 820, PCMS 1028 to 762. And then 716. So everybody's population, since we touched everybody's middle school, should be decreasing, which was the goal, right? Even with that tough decision on the Beaver Lake Pine Lake split for the Discovery community, that did rebalance those schools. So Executive Director Morris is correct. All your buildings should be lower in population, as we're now dividing by 6, not 5. And also, IMS is built, I think it's our biggest middle school, and Mr. Mullins would have to, IMS and Pine Lake, the new Pine Lake, are basically the same floor plans and the same square footage, give or take, excluding their changes needed for elevation and topography. And I think PCMS, remember, it was built and it has run up to 1,100 kids, and we ran it as a 9th grade campus at over 1,000 with 1,000 freshmen there years ago. So it is also has sufficient capacity. So I think that is I will try to squelch that concern with a community presentation on capacity so that nobody is concerned going forward. So thank you for that. Okay, not seeing any real hands or little Zoom hands.
I think we're good. Let's keep rolling.
Jody, my friend, my colleague.
Yes, Mr. Cooper.
I'm going to let you elementary this thing up. So I always, I love my elementary principals and colleagues, but they have a special way of making you feel as they are an elementary educator. So go for it, Assistant Superintendent Bongard.
Thanks, Mr. Cooper, but I do need to share this. You've all had the chance to spend some time with Jake these last few weeks, and don't let him fool you. A lot of that touchy-feely elementary stuff has definitely rubbed off on him over the years. So just wanted to make note of that. Well, we are off and running, and we've got a lot of plans in place already, and one of the first things that we worked on is a notification letter that will go out to families of students who'll be making the transition to a new school. So those letters, like I say, are ready to go. We're just waiting for the final boundaries and addresses to be entered into our system. So each student who's making a change will be getting a letter here soon. Also, our e-link will be updated as soon as those addresses are entered to reflect the new boundary changes. And that will provide parents another option for confirming their elementary school. One of the most critical pieces that we found in all of our boundary changes is that partnership with our PTSAs. And I've had 2 conversations to date with Erin Eaton, who is our Issaquah School District PTSA Council President. And she and I have had conversations about initial charters, for example, for E16 and Middle School 6. And she's already shared that she's working with the state PTSA, reached out to get a team to come out and help those schools set up their PTSAs. And I have to say, we have plans to make sure that our sending schools are getting information to parents about how they can be involved and be part of the new PTSA board at E16. So we'll be putting newsletter articles out, information in the e-news, and then E16's e-news and grouping will be ready soon. And so Principal Coyle will be able to start communicating directly with those families that will be attending E16. We've had preliminary conversations, Executive Director Mundell and I, with Principals Coyle, Baines, and Otley about the transition process and ways that they can support, like I said, with their newsletters, so that it's in both E16 and the Sending Schools, Clark and Sunny Hills newsletters, information about upcoming events, opportunities when we get closer to tour the new school. And then all of the schools will develop FAQs. We found that was really helpful for parents. A lot of questions around, will my child have a friend in their new class at their new school? How can I give input on that classroom placement process? Does my new school have before and after school care? So we will be continuing to update those FAQs. And like I say, all 3 of the schools involved, E16, Clark and Sunny Hills, will have FAQs on their websites. The other thing that we found helpful is establishing a transition committee at each school with parents to help support with information, resources, even articles about how to help children with transition and change, so that they view this as a positive opportunity in moving to the new school and helping to create a new culture in a new school environment. A little bit different than in the past due to where we are with COVID. But some of the things that we've done in the past is to provide opportunities for students and parents to visit the new school. We've had ice cream socials, open houses, student-led tours, all opportunities to come on site, visit the school, get to see the layout, meet some of the staff, meet some of the students at their new school. It's a really creative group, these principals that are involved. And so I have no doubt that even virtually, we'll be able to provide some awesome opportunities. Another thing that we've talked about and we found was, it sounds silly, but really important for students, is the opportunity partnering with PTSA to purchase logo wear, spirit wear ahead of time, so that first day of school in their new building, that they have their logo where they'll fit right in. And a little bit different than some of our boundary changes in the past, all of the students going will be having new mascot, new colors, and new logo wear. So we'll have those opportunities, even if we have to wait a little bit until August, where hopefully we'll have more opportunities to be able to do some of these transition pieces in person. I mentioned in the FAQ placement, that's really important to our families, to parents and students. about who their classroom teacher will be. A lot of worry in the previous changes about, will I know students in my new classroom? And so we do work together. We sent out information to parents from the sending schools on how they can give input, and then assure parents that we will work really hard to make sure they have 3 or 4 students in each classroom, a familiar face that they know that they have worked well with in the past from their prior school in their new classroom. One of the other pieces that we do every year when our students move from 5th grade into middle school, we hold transition meetings with the receiving middle schools, and to share information about students that might have unique needs. And we will plan to do that as well as students move at all grade levels from Clark and Sunny Hills to E16. So we'll provide opportunities for those transition meetings between teachers, between staff, so that we can make sure our students get off to the best start that they can. And then probably most importantly is just keeping our families informed. I know Principal Coyle is excited to start sending photos and of the construction project, keeping families updated on the progress there. She's got plans for mascot, school colors, naming the school. So that's all coming as soon as we get that listserv, and we can start sending communications out to those students and families that will be part of E16. We know that sometimes riding buses for some kids is new. So at their current school, they may not be bus riders, and that may be another transition for some of our students. And so we also will be having conversations about how we can ease that transition for kids who have never been bus riders, so they're comfortable with that as well. So a lot of planning in place, and like I say, it's a really creative group that Susan and I are working with, and I have no doubt that they'll make this experience for our families, for our students, a really positive one, and one that will be a smooth transition. Principals or Executive Director Mundell, anything to add? I know Miss Otley was a partner with mine in the last couple of transitions, so she's very experienced as well in making these transitions seamless, smooth, and positive for our families.
And then Planning Principal Coyle, I would be remiss if I didn't hear from you as well, so you can welcome your new E16ers. So if you have anything to add, I'm sure you do, Ms. Coyle. Feel free to do so.
Thanks,
Thank you, Jody.
I ditto everything that Jody said. We're getting super excited and super prepared for our new students and our new families, coming up with all sorts of unique plans. Very excited to get a parent from each feeder school onto our core team so that we can include parents in our processing of new procedures and all of those things that we have to get in place before those kids come in late August, early September. So I'm really excited to keep parents informed. I've been up to the site several times and have many pictures. And so can't wait to share those with the parent community and the students so that they can see their new home away from home. And really looking forward to setting up with PTSA to make a collaborative approach. You know, a school is not a school without our PTSA. And I can speak from that from all 3 of the schools I've worked at in Issaquah. Issaquah PTSAs are like none other. And so I'm excited to get a new group of parents and just make E16 an amazing place for our students to grow and learn.
Tara. Any other elementary folks? Bashful. That's unlike.
That's us.
Yes, it really. You must be on your best behavior given the YouTube.
We had a 4-hour elementary principal
that's right.
prior to this meeting, so we are all talked out.
I do want the public to know and the committee that usually elementary principals aren't this docile, but prior to our boundary meetings, they have a 4 or 5 hour extensive meeting with Jody as they go over either professional development or the business of the district. So I think they're usually kind of tired when they get here. So, which is fortunate for me because they can be a wily group when all together. So
A lot of preparing for return to in-person right now. So
you think?
a lot of conversations.
So Jody, if I'm a new parent and I get the letter, what do I do then? And I have a new second grader going to E16. Where do you want me to go?
Well, Miss Coyle is right on top of things. And so as soon as we have that listserv of families, she will be pushing out information all about E16, how parents can get involved, how they can be part of naming the school. So she's got, I saw it today, she's got a beautiful letter ready to go and information so that immediately parents will get her follow-up letter, welcome to E16.
It's a very exciting time. We get a name a school, mascot, found a new ASB and a new PTSA.
Yes.
Pretty cool things that are gonna happen.
We're exciting. So our first communication, our plan is for it to go out on February 22nd is our timeline. We're hoping to have all the students' names and all of their data transferred over in the system so that we can send communication to those families and students directly. And Jody Bungard has an email or letter that will go out as well as myself. And we're just like, time's ticking. Let's get on with this. Let's go. So thank you for your work, Boundary Review Committee.
Yes.
I've been just so eager for this to get all wrapped up so I know who my families are. So thank you.
A lot of work happening behind the scenes simultaneously with this.
Principal
Jody,
Otley.
I was just going to add that as Tara gets her listserv and she pushes out from the E16 viewpoint that both Tim and I will be pushing families from their current homeschools. So they'll see the partnership and the collaboration, but wanting to make sure that all families are well informed.
And then just to add to that, I guess, Jake, you talk about the caring nature of our elementary staff. And I think that is one thing that having made the migration down from the secondary ranks that you notice very quickly amongst our elementary colleagues and particularly our teachers, they care very, very much about our students and where they are each year. And so, after spending a year with our kids, they want to make sure that each and every one of their students in a place where they can be in their best position to thrive as learners and as people the following year. And so our Sunny Hills teachers, Clark teachers will be very thoughtful in contributing and working towards supporting those placements to make sure that all of our students who are making that transition, as Assistant Superintendent Bongard mentioned, are with some familiar faces and really supported with an environment they can be nurtured and grow with their classmates. And then I know Principal Coyle and the core team are off to some great work there too. So we'll be sad to see families go, but sure, it will be a very smooth transition. And we're excited to partner with you all on that.
Thank you, Tim. Anything else from my elementary colleagues?
I would just add, Jake, that Jody and I will be behind the scenes supporting the principals as they, help with the families and the kids and the transition. So there's not just the front lines, but there's the back lines too, and we'll be there to support the community and the schools as they make these changes, exciting changes.
Indeed.
Yeah,
And I don't know if I saw Dr. Bailey on the phone or if she's on tonight or not.
She is. Well, I admitted her.
Dr. Bailey, I know I didn't tell you were going to speak. I'm sorry, but I would be remiss if I didn't include you in the transition because some of your special education kiddos that you oversee are obviously making the transition to new buildings. And so I figured before we went to middle schools, I'd give you a little bit of time to kind of discuss that as well, because and whether or not any of our families have special needs kids themselves, obviously we all know families that do, and that are throughout our community. So I figured you'd give it a go, Dana.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks. Of course, at elementary 16, there'll be an LRC1 program, just as there is in every other one. There will also be at least one LRC2 class. Last year, if you're in the LRC2 community or know anyone, we did a lot of moving to realign students to their home high school path. And we left the students in that sort of geographic region where they were at Challenger because we anticipated not knowing what this new boundary would be. And we did want to move them more than once. So we'll take a look at how the kids landed and draw the boundaries aligned with the schools and their feeder patterns. So they stay with their friends through middle school and high school. And the many changes at middle school will have me earning my money in the next 2 or 3 weeks, figuring out who's going to what school. And I think it's going to be awesome. I appreciate the consideration for students with disabilities. They really need to be well prepared and they will have an awesome start.
Thank you, Dr. Bailey. Appreciate that. Okay, Executive Director Morris. Now, your middle schools. Oh, Amy has a question. Sorry, Amy.
Sorry, it just popped in my head right when I heard Dana Bailey talking. Did we or can we communicate to our communities as well some of those special programs at schools like Merlin and the Science Tech? I know that was not our decision what's happening to those, but we happen to have one of those at our school, and that has been a question. Are they staying where they currently are? And if just when that will be communicated to families if there are changes.
We are close to making that determination. So remember, we made some changes like keeping Discovery intact and leaving Endeavor a bit smaller. That may have me rethink some program placement with Assistant Superintendent Bungard and Dr. Bailey. But and then Jody and I really haven't had any time since the boundaries haven't finalized yet to talk about any program expansion. But we know that is on our short list to do. And, you know, of course, we talked about Science Tech and Merlin as some traditional programs at elementary. And then Dr. Bailey just kind of gave you a sneak peek, obviously, on what she's planning with the new school. So soon, Amy, on that, we're not quite there yet. I do need to get kind of revised enrollment projections out to Jody in particular to see if we have room to expand any offerings or if we need to shift any programs around. But soon, it won't take very long at all now that we're hitting the home stretch. So thank you. Okay, Mr. Morris.
All right, Mr. Cooper, thank you. Hello, Jason Morris. I'm the Executive Director of Middle Schools here at the ISD. And I wanted to start off just by thanking the committee for their work, thanking the community for supporting the ISD to give us the opportunity to build new schools within our system. And really, you know, that's kind of how we got here with bringing new schools into our system. That opportunity doesn't happen without a supportive community. So I want to thank you and thank our community for that effort. I would say, Mr. Cooper, that in 13 years as a building administrator in the Issaquah School District, I never worked at a middle school as small as the schools that are now, as we like to say, right-sized after this committee. So I just want to extend a huge thank you to the understanding and the process for right-sizing our schools and preparing us for future growth. Because I think the smallest middle school I served in this district was in the 960, 970 range. And now I'm seeing that every middle school right now is below that for the time being. So, and the reason I say that, it's not that we don't want more kids coming to our schools. It's that, you know, I think a slightly smaller school gives staff and students more of an opportunity to get to know each other and the like. So that's really important. I got to say, I was meeting with my building principals today, and they endure lots of long, boring meetings with me. And I will say that when we talked about transitioning kids to the new buildings and new schools, they lit up. Because they're excited to welcome, to bring new families to their buildings, to welcome new families. And that's work that they're very excited about. As you understand, if you've had a middle schooler before, I like to think that the transition from elementary to middle school, the 5th to 6th grade transition, it's probably about as big and important as that first kindergarten transition. If you think back to those cute little kindergartners, that transition from elementary to middle school is pretty close to that size of an experience. And so I'm proud to say that my principals work really hard in welcoming those new kids to their building. Add on the complexities of a global pandemic, add on the complexities of a reboundary process, and we have some work to do, but we're excited to do that work. I certainly couldn't list all the things that we're planning right now, but we are working hard to welcome those families, much like Assistant Superintendent Bongard articulated, working with the PTSA to charter new PTSAs at our new schools, welcoming letters to families, consulting middle school principals, consulting with elementary principals, and that connection. Much unlike Mr. Baines may have suggested, secondary, we can be pretty heartfelt too at the middle level. I just say that because Mr. Baines was a former middle school assistant principal. So, but we can be warm and fuzzy too at the secondary level.
Very true, Mr. Morris. Very true.
Thank you, Tim. We have plans for that transition, and we're going to build our plans off of that transition work that we do for our 5th to 6th graders. So we kind of have a template, we kind of have a roadmap, but what the awareness is now is we need to build on that for our 7th and 8th graders that are coming into our new middle schools. We're going to build off that process. And there's, it can be a lot. There's some choices we make when we go to middle school, math and science pathways. So those are some natural complexities that come with the transition, but we're willing and ready to work with our families in addition to those natural items, those new items that come to light with a new school. We want to focus on those 7th and 8th graders. We'll be working on FAQ pages. We have a program at the middle level that has been very successful. It's called our WEB program, and that stands for Where Everybody Belongs. And we have made a practice over the years of developing leadership amongst our older students, our 7th and 8th graders, and they help welcome those 6th graders into our buildings. So not only is it staff and admin doing that welcoming work, it's our kids, our students. In addition to that, we've developed those web groups for our 7th and 8th graders that come new to a system, because every year we have new kids from maybe out of state or even out of the country. So we're going to leverage those devices and those tools at just a bigger target audience. We too have transition meetings, typically with our students with special needs. We are working actually at the end of this month. We have a yearly transition meeting for students, maybe with special circumstances that are moving from the elementary to the middle. So that work will continue. We like to do in-person tours at our buildings. That's going to be tricky this year, just now because of the global pandemic. And it's also going to be really tricky. I know Principal Mckee and Principal Coyle can appreciate this. We're not going to be probably able to get in-person tours at those new buildings right now, not unless we buy a couple thousand hard hats, because those are definitely active construction things.
True statement.
Yeah, we're talking about doing virtual tours though, trying to bring that notion of kind of getting to know your surroundings ahead of time to the best of our ability, obviously exacerbated by the pandemic, but we're going to go ahead and work on that. Principals are planning different events via Zoom where new families to their buildings can meet their admin team, can meet their principal, ask questions. Those will be going out this spring. As mentioned for E16 and middle school 6, we're eagerly awaiting our email distribution lists. We have website templates made. We're simply waiting on mascots and school colors and ready to push go on that. So that'll be an effective way to communicate. We are planning on working with our PTSAs to make sure that we can distribute or have opportunities for what we call logo wear. So logo wear is your school spirit sweatshirts, your Maywood or IMS, or hopefully we have a name for middle school 6 by then. I'm sure we will. So kids can have kind of some gear before they come to school.
I didn't tell you that we were just going to start numbering our schools.
No, I'm not into that, Mr. Cooper. Sorry.
Sorry. Like in New York, where they're just numbered buildings.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Elementary school 5. Go for it. So we find that those are things that get kids excited when they get, a sweatshirt for their new school or some new gear. The biggest advice that I can give, and I think my principals will echo this as they communicate with families, is change is a natural part of life. Kids change teachers every year. There are opportunities that come with change. And if we frame that change as positive and we provide appropriate supports, it's fine to remember what was in the past, but it's exciting to look forward. And that's kind of the messaging we want to push out to our buildings. So, it's going to take time. It's going to take a few months for us to go ahead and push all that work out. But those are the things that we'll be working on from a middle school perspective. I would like to hear a little bit from Principal Mckee. I know she's excited to get her community so she can get some parents on her core team. She's been working with Principal Coyle on planning and school colors, and she wants to survey her community. They're going to have a chance to have a say in naming and maybe some mascots, and curious to hear what Principal Mckee has in store for us. Aaron, are you out there?
Thank you,
Bring
Mr.
us home,
Martin.
Aaron. We're going to try to wrap this thing up early.
Great. I just have like 45 minutes worth of comments. So.
Perfect.
Oh, well, the best thing about Zoom is that you can mute people.
Oh.
Go for it.
No, I echo everything that Mr. Morris said. There is a transition for Maywood students too. The transition is that they will have a new principal. So that communication out to the community will be coming soon as to how they can give input for that new principal at Maywood. I'll be so sad to leave because it's a wonderful, wonderful school, but I'll be bringing a whole neighborhood with me to middle school 6, and that's Newcastle. And so I'll be, as middle school 6 principal, serving Newcastle, Lakemont, and that part of Tallis, students going to IVE. So I'm very connected to these communities, and I'm just so excited to build something so fresh, and it's just very exciting. The core team just told me yesterday that this work that we're doing together is filling their buckets right now, because there's a lot that we can't control and there's a lot that we can get down about right now, but this is truly filling our buckets, because what we're talking about are our core values, what drives us as educators, what kind of school do we want to build for students, and it's really, really motivating work. We took a field trip to middle school 6 with our hard hats and safety vests, and it is different to be there on site. So I can't wait to open doors up for, students and parents to be on site with us in the fall. We're looking at, all the things, furniture, whiteboards, teacher presentation stations, lots of decisions are being made, but mostly our focus is on uniting the communities that we will serve, because our students will come together for middle school for 3 years, and then they'll be separated. Again, they'll go to Issaquah High School and Liberty High School. And so a lot of our conversations are centered around how do we bring these communities together? And just a little teaser, we'll do this in a number of ways, but just a little teaser, we are looking into how to do this with our school colors, to be just really upfront with our goal is that we want to bring these communities together, form this middle school family, and then promote them onto their respective high schools. Please look for a letter from me on February 22nd, just like Principal Coyle said. Our letters are going out the same day to our new families that we're serving. And the communication will be long, but we have a lot to share. For one, we want our students to know about the mascot survey. We want students to vote on this mascot, and we want our students to feel really great about this mascot and have some ownership over their new school. We also have a survey for families on the school name. So there'll be some ranked weighted surveys, and they can also write in a name if they have a really good choice themselves they want to submit. And we will be looking for parents to serve on the core team as well. I'll be working with Drew Terry, Todd Wood, and Michelle Picard to make sure our new sixth graders have all that they need to make their course requests and feel like they're ready to begin middle school. So yeah, it's truly exciting work, and I'm really glad I'm able to take part in it at this time right now with these people. It's just been really special.
So from the committee, I know we've been yakking at you a bit. Is there any questions on middle school transition? I did have conversation with some community folks that a lot of districts do boundaries, but they've failed to do the second part, which is the transition, which I think is I alluded to. Yes, the math and logistics are important, but you being comfortable having your kiddo go to that new school and dropping them off with a smile rather than a grimace is kind of what we're hoping for, right?
And I would also say, Jake, if there's questions that strike you later on tonight or in the future, feel free to reach out to any of the district staff here, including myself, including Jake, and we will make sure that we get back to you in a timely manner and get your questions answered the best that we can. I do see a hand in the air, Tricia Marshall. Tricia, you have the floor. Take it away.
Thanks. And sorry, because Aaron, you might have touched on this, but I was distracted by one of my kids. I'm just curious, coming out of this year, where our current 7th graders have been completely separated from their classmates. And I'm speaking specifically to Newcastle and Cougar Ridge kids as well, and those 30% of IVE, where they've been completely separated from their classmates this year, and then next year for their 8th grade year are going to be put into new schools with people they hadn't been in school with, and then taken back out to different high schools. Is there anything specific you guys are thinking about for those students in particular?
That question was for me, right, Tricia?
Yeah.
I hope so.
Yeah. No, we've started having these conversations among our core team. How do we adapt this web program, this orientation program, because all of our students will be new for middle school 6, and we do realize that our incoming 7th graders next year it's possible that they may not have done any learning in one of our buildings this year. I hope that's not the case, but they're in a really unique position. And you're right, the 8th graders are also in a special place. So we are making those considerations as we rethink. We had a really strong orientation program, the web program, but we need to kind of rethink it and expand it with these special circumstances. So that's absolutely 100% on our mind. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
Aaron,
I don't have any answers yet, but it's on our mind.
I would add, just to kind of piggyback, because that question is, that's a deep question. There's a lot of moving parts there. My team and I were in a meeting today. We continue to keep it as an agenda item because the concept of transitioning back from COVID and bringing kids in person and kids leaving school last spring, we're keenly aware that we have students, 6th graders especially, that are middle school students for numerous months now and haven't stepped foot in the building. So that is just kind of compounding that welcome. And while that's a challenge, that's also an opportunity. So that's an opportunity for us to welcome a couple groups of kids into a building maybe that don't have tons of experience there. In some ways, that can be seen as a positive because there's just more kids that are new to the building, and those are opportunities for our buildings to continue to develop the building culture, to reteach expectations and revisit the culture of that building. So it's going to be challenging work. There's no doubt about it. COVID's definitely compounded it. But again, we want to approach it, not that there won't be challenges, but I think there'll be a lot of positives coming out of it as well.
Thank you, thank you, Jason, for that too. As we kind of wind up our night tonight, I did promise something last 2 weeks ago, and which was we've always in the past, we have had cake when we've been in person. Well, obviously we can't do that. So I'm going to share with you here, it's a virtual cake. And if you look at that, it says Dustin wants to thank all of you guys. I don't know who Dustin is. I just did a Google image search for a thank you sheet cake.
Wow.
And found that one. So again, I don't know who Dustin is, but I did want to bring at least a virtual cake to everybody. If we were in person, it would be a real one and we would cut everybody a piece. But more seriously, folks, you gave up a lot of Thursday nights to be part of this process. The first time we ever did it on Zoom, hopefully the last time, the dedication and just the time that you gave to this process. I just want to say thank you so much for that. I also want to say thank you to Colleen, Bridget, Lisa White, Teresa Aarons, Martin Turney, that whole technical team. Just put a ton of work in under the tutelage and guidance of a one CFO, Jay Cooper. Thank you for that. And we are going to continue to push through the school year and make it the very best that we can the second half. We're going to get out of the gate really well in September. I can feel it. So Jake, you want to bring us home?
Yeah, I just think throughout the years, I've had lots of committees or co-facilitated committees. I often form relationships that are long lasting with parents. And that's kind of essential to our work. You're part of the community, and I see people that come back for committee after committee and give heart and soul to PTSA in the district. So I would be remiss not to just thank you. This group of 40 kept level heads, had emotional conversations. We had a presidential election, a global pandemic, and everything else in between. And we kept on task and did our business. And I'm just damn proud of all of you. And if you have any questions, fortunately or unfortunately, you got my email and my contact info. And so I hope to see you again in some capacity. You were all great and contributed and went through really difficult conversations. And so again, next Thursday, Superintendent Thiele will be presenting the boundaries to the board. And we're on to hopefully a more traditional and normal school year in September of 21, which I think we're all looking forward to. So at that end, I wish we were eating sheet cake together. One day we will. And
maybe Dustin will be with us too.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to figuring out who Dustin is. Really, that's basically my whole. So principals, of course, thank you for giving your time after your workday, and parents just volunteering to be parts of those your children's education and lives. And of course, there'll be lots of more volunteer opportunities to come as we transition to new buildings. So on that note, good night. Good luck.
Thanks, everybody.